So thank you for everyone for attending today. My name's Aaron. For those of you that haven't been to one of these before or we haven't met in person, so thank you very much for joining us today. Firstly, I'd just like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. Today, I'm on Kaurna land and I pay my respects to the Kaurna people and also pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people with us today. Before I start with the slides, I just wanted to let you all know that next Friday, starting at, I think it's about 10:30 a.m., we're going to host a Back to Basics Q&A. And that's an opportunity for anyone essentially just to ask any questions about the scheme, whether or not you have only just learnt about the scheme and its obligations, or if you're a seasoned professional and we've been talking to you for ages and you've got a few questions, that's the session that Mandy and I will be just sitting in front and answering all your questions. So if you have got questions today that aren't related to what we're talking about today, can I just ask that you save them for next Friday and register yourself to attend? There are time slots based on different themes, and we can get to those questions at that point in time. So themes like eligibility or registration obligations or even claims, if they're not, I guess, related to what we're talking about today, just give us an opportunity to get through the completing your quarterly return webinar. And then save your questions for next Friday. Or, you know, we've got a full team here in the office that can talk to you, or you can email us about those questions as well. So today's session really is all about helping you confidently complete and submit your quarterly return for the portable long service leave scheme. For those of you that aren't aware, we released the return document yesterday. For those of you that have registered your organisation, the return is available on your employer portal. We wanted to release this a little bit earlier than normal, just to give you some time to familiarise yourself with it. We know that the quarter ends on the 31st of December, so we don't expect you to complete the return until that happens. But it's, again, just a few more days extra than what we would normally give you, just so you can jump on in, have a look, and you can even start preparing yourself with it anyway. So one thing just to remember about the return document, if you haven't already registered your eligible workers, the form will actually not show them on the returns form if you jump on into it. So they won't be pre-populated like they would normally be if you have registered your eligible workers. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes on one of the slides. I don't think today will take up the entire hour, meaning there's obviously a little bit more time for questions at the end, or you can get some time back in your busy schedules before Christmas. What we'll do is we'll walk through each step of the process. I will show you a little video which explains what information and that you'll need to have ready, and highlight some of the questions that we've seen so far. By the end of the session, hopefully you'll know exactly what you need to do to complete your quarterly return. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page, the scheme officially started on the 1st of October. And so by now you should have all registered your organisations. If that's still on your to-do list, can I ask that you prioritise it as soon as you can? It's a quick 5-minute task through the employer portal on our website. As you can see, and I just spoke about, we're now in our first reporting quarter, which runs from the 1st of October to the 31st of December. And during this time, you'll need to register your eligible workers. Again, aim to have that wrapped up by the end of the month, so you're ready for your first return, which is due by the 21st of January. Your levy payment is also due by the 21st of January as well. So you've got up until that date to make sure that you've submitted that return and the levy is paid. Once you're set up, once you're registered, and once your eligible workers are uploaded, your main ongoing task is to complete a quarterly return. These returns are pretty straightforward. They're generated automatically in the employer portal and are due by the 21st day after the end of each quarter. So for example, the January to March quarter return will be due on the 21st of April, and the same pattern continues throughout the year. When you submit your return, the system will automatically generate an invoice for the levy, and that will be available for you on the employer portal, and will also be emailed through as well. Once your workers are registered, like I said, your ongoing task is to complete a quarterly return. Every time a return becomes available, you'll receive an email advising that it's on your dashboard on your employer portal. The return you can see on your screen now. The link will be available in that pending returns box, or you can go up to the drop-down box at the top there under returns and access it that way. Just like I said before, if you haven't registered your workers before now, the form, if you go into it now, will be empty. And there are a couple of options here for you. The first option is when you register all of your eligible workers as part of the worker registration process, our team will be able to add these workers to the returns form for you. That's a pretty simple process for us to be able to do throughout that. The alternative to that, if you want to do it yourself, is that you can register all of your eligible workers via the worker bulk upload spreadsheet. And that's where once we've processed the registration from our end to add them to, you can add them to your return one by one. So it really depends on which way you want to go about it. Again, the quick and simple option would be for us to do it for you. And then once we've added those workers to your return, they'll continue to populate on that return until they're no longer working for you and advise us otherwise. You'll need to report your workers' weeks that they've worked in that quarter and how much you've paid them for that period. The system will guide you through it. It's designed to be quick and simple, and I guess the more you use it, the more familiar you become with it. Like I said, when you submit the return, the system will automatically generate an invoice for you for the levy, and that payment is due by the 21st day of that quarter. We'll just take a quick look through a quarterly return step-by-step video. I've tested the sound this time around, so hopefully it should work. Please put your hand up if you're having trouble hearing it. There's some audio, but also some cue boxes of what it's saying as well. But yeah, let's listen to watch the video, and then if you've got any questions afterwards, we can go through that.
Log into your employer portal. The dashboard will display any pending returns. Returns can also be accessed from the main menu. Open the relevant return. The return will pre-fill all active workers that were registered before the return document was generated. Complete the information on screen. Enter the weeks worked and the remuneration for all workers for this quarterly period. The amount will automatically calculate. Click Add Existing Worker to view other workers on your account to add to the return. Select Additional Worker and enter the weeks worked and remuneration. The total will adjust. Keep adding workers as needed. If weeks worked or remuneration is 0, You'll be required to enter a discrepancy reason. If the worker terminated, enter their last day of employment with you. To add a
Can everyone hear that still? All right, hang on a minute. I think something just happened in my computer. Bear with me.
new worker, select Add New Worker. Complete the new worker's details. And enter the weeks worked and remuneration. The total will adjust. Select Submit. You can also bulk upload the weeks worked and remuneration. There are instructions for each column, including a list of what's included and excluded in remuneration. And instructions for adding new workers. Manually enter weeks worked and remuneration. Enter any discrepancies. Or any termination details if applicable. Using the Instructions tab, you can see what is required to add new workers. Enter the details of the worker. The preferred option for email is a personal email address instead of a work email address. Enter the weeks worked and remuneration. Save your file and upload to the portal. An invoice will be emailed to you. With different payment options available. You can also find your invoices on the employer portal.
Okay, that's just the end of the video. What wasn't shown in this video was that if you have workers who had one or more weeks in that period where they did not do any work, you'll need to upload a copy of their timesheets for that period so we can identify when they did and didn't work. Ideally, this is in a spreadsheet, and you can provide it for just the workers who didn't work at least one shift per week, or you can provide it for all of your workers if it's easier. The reason why we need this information is to make sure workers are paid the right rate of pay when they claim their long service leave. Oops. I just want to touch quickly on ordinary weekly pay, or OWP, for service accrued after the scheme started, because it's important everyone has the same understanding. OWP is simply the amount used to work out what a worker gets paid when they take long service leave. It's not based on their current rate alone. It's calculated as an average of what they've earned each week over the past 3 years. And that average covers all their service. So if a worker has been employed by several organisations in that time, their OWP reflects earnings across all employers and all return periods recorded in the scheme. Next, take a quick look at remuneration, because it's directly linked to both the levy and the OWP. Remuneration is basically the gross payments made to a worker for their work, and that includes ordinary wages, regular allowances, and other standard payments. It doesn't include one-off bonuses or reimbursements, just the payments that reflect their regular work. And this is what we use to calculate both the levy you pay and the worker's average weekly pay for long service leave. And keeping this distinction clear helps avoid errors in reporting and ensures everyone's records are accurate. The regulations which were released in July specifically talk about OWP and remuneration and what's excluded and what's included. And when calculating the levy, there are some clear rules on what's included and excluded from an employee's ordinary pay. So on the screen, you can see a list of inclusions, and that is a fairly significant list to be aware of. The other significant thing to be aware of is that last dot point on the right-hand side, which is that catch-all, that includes anything that is not listed as an exclusion. So what we've been sharing with everyone is that it's simply if the allowance or the remuneration is not excluded or on the excluded list, we consider it to be included. And if I go to the excluded list, these are the payments that do not count towards the levy. Annual leave loading, superannuation, bonuses like I mentioned earlier. And if it's not on this list, again, just to be very clear, if it's not on this list, we consider it to be included as part of remuneration. Let's talk about workers claiming long service leave quickly. Workers who have completed at least 120 months of service can either take time off or request a cash payment instead. Leave must be claimed in whole days with a minimum of 1 week per claim. Workers submit their application through the worker portal, but the leave won't be paid or approved until the employer approves the time off. I guess the standard rule is that workers should apply 2 months in advance, but we know that sometimes there are different circumstances requiring something shorter. So if there's an agreement between the worker and the employer for a shorter notice period, that's okay as well. Payments are generally made the week before the leave starts, so the worker has access to their pay on time. Important to note, if a worker leaves the community services sector after at least 84 months of service, they can receive a pro rata payment for the long service leave they've accrued. That's a really important dot point to be aware of, that that they are available to receive that payout as long as they are leaving the sector. Let's take a quick look at transitional provisions. This is about service a worker has accrued before the scheme started on the 1st of October. Any continuous service with an employer before that date carries over into the scheme. So what that means is it actually counts towards portable long service leave entitlements. However, if a worker leaves before reaching 7 years with that employer, the service they had before October is lost. So in normal circumstances, under the State Act, you still had to reach 7 years of continuous service to be eligible for a pro rata long service leave. It's the same in this transition period over to the portable long service leave scheme, that they still need to reach that 7 years of continuous service for that to count towards portable long service leave. On the other hand, if a worker stays for 7 or more years, the employer becomes liable for a payment for the long service leave accrued before the scheme started. The rate of pay for service accrued before the scheme is calculated under the Long Service Leave Act 1987, so it reflects the old rules, not the scheme's current average weekly pay calculation. Just wanted to talk to you a little bit about compliance. We've said this a lot and we mean it. Our approach is pretty simple. We're here to provide support and guidance. And we would prefer not to issue penalties. The goal from our perspective is to help everyone understand their obligations under the scheme and make it easy for them to be met. If any issues come up, our intent is to work collaboratively with employers to resolve them. And one practical thing employers can do to make life easier is to keep clear records and documentation of registrations, returns, and payroll calculations. That helps you, and it helps us if questions arise. I guess it keeps everything as straightforward as possible for everyone. We know, I guess, this change can feel a lot to take in, and so we have a lot of support available throughout each step of the process. Firstly, we have a number of toolkits and information sheets available on our website. They walk you through things like the registration process, the worker setup, the returns and the levy payments. We also, obviously like today, run webinars, which we record all of them and upload them onto our website for anyone who wants to rewatch or watch for the first time. Generally, we've been able to upload recordings within 24 hours of each webinar. So hopefully today's webinar will be up on our website by the end of the week, hopefully today even. And I guess if you need a little bit more help, we have some customer service officers ready to take your phone calls or answer your emails. They can guide you through any part of the process and answer any specific questions. I think the takeaway that I just want to make sure that you all have is that you're not on your own. There are multiple ways for you to get support or help whenever you need it. I've mentioned a few times around our website. There's the link on your screen now. If you wanted to, you could grab your smartphone and take a quick copy of that QR code, which will take you to the resources page on our website. You can call us on either of those numbers, and our customer service team will be available to take a call and try and answer any of your questions. Sometimes there are questions that even for us, we might need a little bit of a discussion about, just try and work out exactly what it means. And we've been getting quite a lot of questions that are specifically individualized, if that makes sense. They're targeted towards that specific employer. So it might mean we just need a little bit more information, and we'll come back to you with a response as soon as we possibly can. We also regularly post on both of our social media platforms, LinkedIn and Facebook, about upcoming sessions or release of information or anything in that space as well. So if you haven't already, I would suggest you give us a follow on either of those two platforms. Yeah, so I guess I didn't think we would take the full hour, but the presentation generally takes about 30 minutes. Mandy, how are we looking for questions on the chat so far, and whether or not we need to raise any in particular?
They're all answered, so that's
nice. That's good.
Yeah, busy typing. We do have Maria's hand up though.
Oh, Maria, yes, I didn't see that, sorry.
Can I just ask a question, just for some clarification about when a worker does not work over a period of a week or a fortnight, they are casual. The payroll system that we use does not generate a pay slip.
Yeah, so
and we have over 200 workers that are casually employed.
Long story short is that for us to be able to calculate what the worker gets paid per week, we need to know when they did and didn't work with each employer across the sector. Just because of the way the legislation is written, any weeks where a person didn't do any work is disregarded when calculating their weekly rate of pay. So that's why we need to know when they did and didn't work, so we can compare that with their other jobs across the sector and see if there were any weeks where they didn't work at all, or if there were weeks where they worked with one employer but not the other employer. The reason why we're doing the timesheet upload, or it doesn't have to be a timesheet, but it does have to be something that shows when they did and didn't work during that period, is because that was the easiest way we found that we could capture that information without putting way more work on to the employers. Effectively, the alternative is you tell us specifically which day each person worked and how long they worked for on each one of those days, which is a huge amount of work for you to do. So that's why we went down the path of provide the supporting documentation just as a timesheet, as a spreadsheet extract from whatever system you might have it in. There are lots of different ways you could provide that would still show that information, but it is required under the Act for us to have that so that we can calculate the worker payments.
Okay, so just an Excel sheet that would say 00, that's sufficient.
Yeah, if the person didn't work at all, yes. It just needs to be split into each of the weeks worked.
Okay.
So yeah, it will need to be split into each of the weeks worked, so we can go, okay, between this date and this date they did not work. In between this date and this date they did work, and that's how we can work out whether they worked at all in the sector during the week. And that's what we need to know.
Okay, that is a lot of work.
I understand. This is the absolute minimum amount of information we could ask for from you to get what we need to be able to administer the Act. And I know it's not amazing, but that's all we can do. So that's what there is.
Okay.
Thanks, Maria. Anyone else got any questions?
There's a comment about the pay category report. I'm not sure about that. Potentially, but like I said, it does have to show the weeks when they do and don't work. So if they worked at least one shift a week, you don't have to provide anything, because we know they've already worked one shift a week, which means that each week during that period they did do some kind of work, which is great. It's only if they have some weeks within the period where they didn't do any work at all, that's where we need some data about it. The same works is if they didn't work at all during the period, you also don't need to provide any information. The whole point of it is so we can determine which weeks they did and didn't work and compare those with their other roles across the sector. So if your pay category report will separate it out in that way, cool, use that. If it doesn't, then you can use a different thing. That's why I've suggested the timesheets, because most people who are working inconsistently do have a timesheet. Not everyone, I get that. Shift care calendar, also not sure about that, but potentially if it shows that information that we're talking about, absolutely fine.
Maria, I see you got your hand up again. Do you want to follow up?
I do want to ask, is there a are you creating a form for people who did not work all of the periods of time so it can just be a template?
We weren't going to. If you want us to create a spreadsheet that kind of indicates what information we might need, then yes, but
Yeah,
you'll
because
still need to.
in some ways the number has to be from 0 to 12. If a person falls in at 6, we've now got to explain what happened to the remaining, and it was at 0. Is that what you're saying to me? So for week 7, it's 0.
Yeah,
Is that what?
what we're saying is that if the person didn't work between the 12th of March and the 19th of March, we need to know that. That's what we need to know, because if they worked with some other job between that time frame, then that changes the way their weekly rate of pay is calculated. That's why we need to know.
Yeah, and that's why I'm wondering if there would be a template created for the benefit of easy data application and uploading it.
Yeah.
Do we put dates in? Do we put the weeks in? Do we put the amounts in? Because it is, when you're working with a casual workforce that have variable hours, it's not an easy task to every week go, okay, this person is under 12, I've got to work out.
We
All
do
right.
understand it's not an easy task,
Yeah,
and that's
it's not.
yeah, we can't make it any better than that. It is what it is,
I'm
and that
just
is what
looking
we
for a
need.
simple tool to do it. That's what I'm asking for.
See what we can do. Cannot promise you anything in that space. That's why we thought the timesheets would be a simple tool. If they're not because you don't have them, well, that's unfortunate. But we will see what else we can do to help you. But at the end of the day, that's what's required at this stage. So,
Okay.
Thanks for your feedback, Maria. We'll
Thank
definitely
you.
take that on board.
Thank you.
So I think Manchu's asked some very similar questions to what we were just talking about then with you, Maria. So
Yeah.
if the employer hasn't worked that whole quarter, we just need to know what weeks they worked within that quarter. And if you don't have timesheets, that's the conversation we've been having as well about how do we report or how do we gain that information about what they were paid and when they were paid. So if just leave that with us here and we'll have a bit of a think about what that might look like. Amy's talking about Victorian portable long service leave. And I know that obviously there are other states around Australia that has a similar community services long service leave scheme, and the similarity between all the schemes is pretty much the name, and that's about it, unfortunately. So each scheme has different rules around what they capture or what they are required or who's eligible and everything in that space. So there are other schemes, but unfortunately they aren't very good at talking to each other at this point in time. But Amy says that in portable long service leave, they ask for total hours and remuneration and no evidence, which is great for Victorians, but not great for South Australians, unfortunately. It's not the way the legislation was written here, unfortunately. So
that's right. Portable long service leave legislation is, well, all long service leave legislation is a state-based legislation, and so it's all different in all states, and the information that's required is different in each state. So the way it's paid out is different, the amount you get is different. So yeah, unfortunately, that's not going to be the same way. There's also a question about if there's any leeway in the first return. We have tried to sort of accommodate that a little bit by releasing the return early. It is not due till the 21st of January, so there are still 3 weeks left after the end. But if you absolutely cannot get it done before the 21st of January, you can log into your employer portal and you can request an extension of time for completing your return. So it's just a form that's in there, and then you can tell us why you need an extension of time and when you think you'll be able to lodge it by. We do need to have that in as soon as possible, so it will be like a short extension if that's granted. But yes, you can request that if you would like to.
can I assume that that form is found under the Forms tab on the employer portal?
It absolutely is.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Okay, so thank you, Amy, for that. You've confirmed that's good. Julie says when
Julie, yes, if they were on paid leave, but then they worked all the other weeks, then no, we don't need any evidence because effectively they've been paid every week within the quarter, and so we don't need any evidence. It's just about the periods where they didn't work and didn't get paid for anything in the quarter and identifying which ones are those, so which ones they did and didn't work across the entire sector.
Excellent. Brilliant. I don't see any other. Oh, and as soon as I said it. All right. Annual leave loading is part of gross pay?
Yeah, with annual leave loading, so some people have that incorporated into their annual leave rate and some people don't. If it's not incorporated, then take it out. If it is incorporated and you want to leave it in, we're not going to pull you up on it. It's up to you. It just means that your levies will be a little bit higher than they need to be. But if it doesn't show in your report and you don't want to find a way to deduct it, then don't.
Brilliant. Simple as that. Excellent. Okay, no one else has got their hand up except for Maria. You've done it manually as well. Brilliant, Maria. You're on mute though, Maria.
My apologies. When you actually have got all of these extra data that you have to provide for people that are not working, what is the time restraint on that, provisions of that?
What do you mean the time restraint?
Okay, so we've got to do the upload or the return. I understand that by the 31st of December. At what point do we actually have to then also give the supporting documentation of people who have not worked?
No, so the return is due on the 21st of January. So
Yeah,
the 31st of December is just adding the workers to the portal. And if you don't get that done by the 31st of December and you want to add them to the return directly, you can do that.
you can.
Okay.
So
But
submitting your
the
return.
information, the
Yeah.
information about when they did and didn't work is part of the return process. So that has to be done by the 21st.
So all supporting documentation needs to be uploaded at the same time.
And how do we provide the supporting documentation if we're providing
through the return?
Through
so
the
it's attached
return.
to the return.
Yeah, if you jump on the returns
form, I'm
Maria,
in it now.
Yeah, you'll be able to upload some supporting documentation as part of that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice.
All right. I think we're done. Unless someone's going to pop up and wish me Merry Christmas. All right. I'm going to give you all 20 minutes back, except for Riaz has just popped up. And okay, Riaz.
Which is fine.
Yes, it's absolutely great. Riaz, you're on mute if you're trying to ask us the questions. No, still on mute. Maybe if you want to chuck it in the chat.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Sorry. Yes, sorry. I was looking for option how to unmute. In the worker detail, when we start the return, submit return, there is a form to fill out worker details. And there is a first column is worker reference. The second column is worker. The third column is start date. So start date means the scheme is starting from 1st October. So should I put the start date for all the staff member from 1st of October or the actual date of the staff started working?
It's the actual date that the person started working for you. So there is both a start date and a registration date field. So the start date is when they started working there and the registration date is when you're registering them from, which would be the 1st of October.
Okay, all right, thank you. So, and one more thing, suppose if staff is not good enough to with the client and then they can't work with the client, for example, and if I'm saying no to employee, what option I should select? Termination reason. It's called genuine redundancy or resignation. No, it's not a resignations.
You just need to select the termination reason that's most appropriate. So if you were making them redundant, then it would be that. If there wasn't one, there is an other option and you can choose other and then tell us why.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for your help.
No
Thanks,
worries.
Riaz.
Thank you.
Sue, you've got both your hands up.
I don't know how I got both my hands up, but so we've got some staff who have up until the 31st of October had breaks in their leave. So I'm putting their start date, but during the last 10 years, they've had a year off unpaid for maternity leave. How is that reflected to you guys? Because that you're not getting that information. So how can you work out the long service leave knowing that without knowing that?
So we are getting that information. So when we're capturing the backdated service, we're going to do that through a one-off return process in February, and you'll get stacks more information about how that works soon.
Okay.
But basically what you're going to tell us is the start date, and then you're going to tell us their continuity of service that you would calculate under the Long Service Leave Act, but that's going to be done in months because everything we do here gets captured in months. So basically if it's 1.5 years, you're going to tell us it's 18 months, and that's how we're going to do that. And if they took a year off, then you're going to deduct that when you're calculating the continuity of service. So your start date and your end date of that return doesn't have to equal the actual calendar months, it equals their actual continuity of service measured in months.
And is that also that return when we would tell you when they've taken long service leave?
Yes, if they've so on that return we're also going to capture the amount of leave that was accrued, the amount of leave that's already been paid, and what their remaining balance is. And if you hold a liability at 30th of September, so if the person already had 7 years at 30 September, you'll also tell us what that liability is that you hold. So all that information is going to go on that return, and that's how we're going to get it all into the system. When you do submit that return, there won't be any payment associated with that one. It's just for data collection so that we have all the details about the service accrued before the scheme commenced.
So as far as we know, because we're non-profit, and I'm imagining that a lot of the people that are going to be playing with this are non-profit, we have a complicated spreadsheet that the auditors provide us to calculate our leave entitlement, which I hate, and I'll be very glad to see the back of. My question is, if we use that form, you know, that it's got forward interest and all that sort of stuff, you don't want that. You just want the number of weeks, the current pay, and blah blah. Is that correct?
Effectively, yeah. So it will be the number of weeks they had, what they've taken, what's left, and then when you're calculating what the employer liability is, it's just the number of weeks of balance they had at 30 September, and then their weekly rate of pay at 30th of September, and that's how you're going to calculate that.
And I can then
none of those other things.
And we can keep that value in our books until we all take it and die or whatever happens. Is that correct? I don't have to amend that every year.
No, you don't have to amend that for workers who already have an entitlement when the scheme starts at 7 years. For the workers who stay with you long enough that they have an entitlement under the State Act, so they've got 7 years with you, but they're also, some of that 7 years is covered under the Portable Act, then your liabilities are a little bit different because they're based on the amount of leave that they've accrued as opposed to that dollar figure that was calculated on 30 September. So that one you do kind of have to keep a rolling total of. But again, provide you a little bit more detail about that. It shouldn't be too difficult to manage because the amount of leave is kind of static, and then it's just when their weekly rate of pay changes under the Long Service Leave Act, you'd update that amount.
Right. So for the people that have done more than 10 years, it'll be what it is as at 30 September.
Yep.
The ones after that will change based on their pay rates and stuff like that.
Yep.
How will we know that for the people? So somebody that's worked for us for 6 years, if they leave us, we don't need to keep that employee on our books, only if they've hit the 10 years or the 7 years?
7, yeah.
7, yeah.
Only if they've hit 7 years and they're entitled to a payment under the Long Service Leave Act because they've been with you as an employer for long enough to get long service leave without the portable.
Right. So anyone that leaves after 30th September, if they've had less than 7 years, then we just drop them off our accrual.
Yeah. Yeah, if they didn't reach 7 years with you before they left, then everything pre-1 October goes away.
Right.
There's I was just trying to jump in quickly. There's a ton of information about transitional provisions on our website.
I did go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, yeah. That's all good.
It all got a bit murky, so it's
it can be a bit tricky, and we get it. So I think around that February return that Mandy's talking about, we're actually currently right now working on some education materials and some support materials around what that looks like and what we're going to need from you. So I think the message I can leave with you on that is just to stay tuned on that. We'll definitely be releasing that as soon as possible. And I think Mandy and I agreed only this week that we'll probably hold a specific webinar on that process as well. So we'll actually be able to get in front of you and hopefully show you a video exactly what's required and then answer all your questions at that point as well. But again, if you've got more questions around transitional provisions, jump on Friday's session next week and we can go from there.
And, you know, if you could give us as much time to do that return, because February's the month my auditor's in my office for
Fair enough.
For 5 days. So, you know, it's already tight. So
we're not here to diss any auditors. So we all love auditors. We get it though. We hear you. So it's all good.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's, you know, we're all very stretched to the max at the moment. And this, you know, just, you know, even just adding our staff in yesterday, I think took us 10 hours between two of us. Yeah, we
recognise that there's a little bit of work up front. Hopefully it becomes easier as we roll through the months now. Now that they're already on there, they'll be pre-populated on future returns, and if you need to add any new workers, it's a pretty simple process. So this first return was going to always be a little bit, or this period was always going to be a little bit more work, but it will get easier from this point onwards.
Thank you.
All good. How are we going, Mandy? Is there any other questions? Or I don't see anyone's hand up, which is tells me that no one has any more questions.
No, not that I haven't answered.
Okay, cool. All right, if there's nothing else, I'll wrap it up. Thank you everyone for jumping on board today. Again, let me just reiterate the fact that we have got staff here in the office that are more than happy to take your phone calls or answer your emails if you've got specific questions around your scenarios and your workplace that might be unique to you. Just flick us through the information and ask the questions, and we can definitely come back to you. There are some things that obviously that you'll need to make a decision on, and we can provide you some advice or some support or guidance. But yeah, look, the team is ready to help you out as much as possible. So if I don't see you next Friday at our Q&A, have a great Christmas. Thank you very much for attending today, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.